What time is it? It's not 6, 7 time. It is welcome to the most overrated, underappreciated, most viewed, underviewed podcast of all time. Welcome to the Prince of Fresh Air Time. I'm, of course, your host, the beloved, the most charismatic man in entertainment. And it's been a long time. It's been a long time. It's been a while. And, I just want to say thank you to everybody who supports the show, whether it's on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. I always appreciate the support and always tuning in to what I do on the Prince of Fresh Air because this is not just a show. This is not just a podcast. This is a brand. This is what WWE strives to be. This is greatness in front of you. Anyway, enough chit chatting, enough self loathing. Where have I been? Where's the episodes been? And I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody who's reached out, asked me about status of the podcast. Scratch that show. It's not a podcast anymore. This is a show. Where I've been, what I've been up to. And I want to get into all that, plus hot takes in sports entertainment and some other things. We got people stealing trash cans in New York City, getting fired from the jobs for it. We got the Knicks with the upsets. We got Obafemi strutting on his way to the top. We got Roman Reigns being acknowledged by all the tribal chiefs. Well, he is the tribal chief, but so am I. So he needs to acknowledge me. A lot of stuff going on. But before we get into all that, let me just have a quick conversation with you guys. Where have I been? Where has the episodes been? Well, um, last year on the podcast, about mid 2025, I did an episode addressing some of the things that's been going on in my life outside of the Prince of Fresh Air. Acting, I've been acting since I was 13 years old. And it's my number one passion outside of the podcast. That's what I do. I consider myself a professional actor. And, lately, I had to take a small break from the podcast. Um, Last year was a lot of changes in my life, representation, relationships, a lot of things happened. And it wasn't the greatest year of my life in terms of acting. And I put a lot of that effort and some of that negative energy I had in my life to the podcast. And I think that's what helped grow the podcast even more. But I think part of my life also took a big hit, and I had a conversation about late April, early May this year. One of my high school friends of for a long time, who's been very successful with acting and entertainment. And one of the things I took away from that conversation was what got me to the dance. As my fan favorite fighter, Dustin Poirier used to say, um, what got me to the dance. And you know, I think I was never truly happy over the last year because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And part of me felt like I was missing a piece of me. And a lot of it was I wasn't doing my job. And I could blame representation, I can blame this and that, but it's also on me too. And I think I've allowed acting to become such a big part of my identity that I didn't know how to be Percy. I didn't know how to be just a normal person. Not to say I'm a showman every day of my life, but I that's my purpose. And I think when you love something and you are trying to achieve greatness at something, that it can consume you. And when you don't have the support, you don't have the platforms to do it, it hurts and it sucks. So I decided to take a little small break and I wanted to really get back to what got me to the dance, what got me to this point in my life, in my career. And that was just going back to the basics. I think sometimes when you achieve some level of success, you forget about the basics. And we see that with a lot of people, whether it's WWE, whether it's UFC, whether it's any type of platform or job or career. When you start creeping up to the top, sometimes you forget the basics. What got you there? And so for me, I decided to take a step back and go back to what I wanted to do. and go back to what got me here. So, over the last, month and a half, 2 months, I really just been hitting the grooves down, hitting the boots to the ground, and going after what's mine, as opposed to just sitting around waiting for things to come to me. And I've been auditioning a lot, callbacks. I might have something in the works. Can't say nothing yet, but I had to go back to the original Percy, the Percy that didn't sit around watching TV, just waiting for opportunities to come to them. I had to go knock down Netflix door and say, "Hey, I'm ready." And so, I wanted to take that approach, and I had to take a step back from the podcast because I know I love this podcast. It's a lot of work. A lot of people don't realize how much work it goes into doing the show. Whether it's editing, whether it's getting guests, creating storylines, and all types of stuff. There's a lot of behind the scenes that happens with this podcast that I try to make this memorable. I don't want you to leave the Prince of Fresh Air saying, "What is this garbage?" No, I want you to stay here and realize this is main event Percy Uso here. So I just had to take a step back, and I'm still doing my acting gig. I'm still doing my acting stuff. A lot of auditions coming in my way. Just had like 4 this past week, and that's what really makes me happy. And I think that's what I needed, that piece of my life to get back to where I was. I went from, not to brag, but I went from auditioning for superhero movies in DC on Netflix, auditioning for roles alongside celebrities, to just sitting on my hands and not doing anything. And I'm grateful for the chapter that unfortunately closed last year. But you know what? This is a new day. Yes, it is. I'm not Big E, but you get the reference. And I feel inspired again. I feel motivated again, and I think that's what I needed. I needed to have that real, realization, and that conversation to get me out of the rut that I was in. And so, we're back. We're back, baby. I'm going to be doing both. I know a lot of people love this show, and they love what I bring to the table in terms of podcasts and or radio. Because I consider myself a show. It's not a podcast; it's a show. I want to entertain you, and that's what I'm here to do. And I'm not going anywhere. You can't get rid of the tribal chief that fast. No, my place in this industry is standing. All right. But yeah, I just want to have a conversation because I know it's a rough time. It's a rough time right now. With politics, a lot of things going on in this world, and a lot of people are in my same situation. I try not to, you know, look at myself as an outlier. I know I'm not the only one going through struggles, and sometimes even if you love something, sometimes you do struggle to get out of bed and find that motivation. Even for me, and I'm one of the most selfless, tireless, hardworking individuals I know. Obviously, but my motivation, dedication to my craft is unwavering, and I needed sometimes you know you just go about life, and when something happens and it gets you off track, sometimes it takes you a while to get back on the track and get back moving forward. So I'm moving forward. I'm looking forward to the rest of 2026 and what it could bring to me and the podcast as well. But most importantly, I want to make this year a better year for acting, because I feel like the Prince of Fresh Air is where it's at. I'm still going to grow. I'm not stagnant in this. But I really feel like when my acting, becomes priority, it makes this show an even better show. So that's why I've been. I just been grinding, a lot of work, a lot of memorizing lines, a lot of self tapes, a lot of time editing and spending time perfecting the craft. But I needed that. I needed that talking, that motivation to get back to where I was. And I got a brand new light on life, brand new outlook, I should say. And I just want to have that conversation. So if you're going through something like that, if you're finding that you're slacking off a little bit. You need some motivation that, your confidence is dipping a little bit. Don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people. Surround yourself with people who care about you and support you. And it's not always family. It could be a coworker, it could be a colleague, it could be one of your high school buddies. It could even be the bartender at the pub. Whoever is there to support you, those are the people you lean on in hard times. And you're going to get through it. Every story doesn't have just peaks. Sometimes you're going to have the dips, you're going to have the valleys, you're going to have the drops, like a roller coaster. Life is all about the roller coaster. And I hit my bottom last year, but you know what? We're on the climb. We're going to Mount Everest, baby. Marvel, look out for me. I'm coming. You can't stop this train. Anyway, let's get back to the Prince of Fresh Air. So I said, why wait till I get a guest to come on to do a show when I am the show? So let's talk about some of the hot takes I have in sports entertainment. First things first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Triple H. A lot of people talk about Triple H. And recently I watched a interview with Paul Heyman on the Chris Van Vliet show on YouTube. And Paul Heyman talked about this. A lot of fans are complaining about the booking of certain talent, the direction WWE is going. And Paul Heyman kind of addressed that. And, he backed Triple H. And some people are going to say, well, that's his employer. Of course, he's going to, support him. But he had a reasonable explanation for it. And it's the same thing like the UFC. Because if you think about it, WWE and UFC was bought by TKO. And it's clearly evident for the price tags that TKO paid for both entities. They got to make their money back somehow. And unfortunately, at times, in a situation like this, the product suffers. And people always blame the immediate first public face they see. A lot of people don't know who runs TKO. I have an idea of a couple of individuals who are running TKO, aka running the WWE. But you don't see them on weekly TV. You don't see them on Friday Night SmackDown. You don't see them on Monday Night Raw. You definitely don't see them on NXT. These are people that sit behind the camera that you never see. So we blame Triple H for a lot of it. And Paul Heyman had a great explanation for this. It just makes sense if you think about it. It's this simple. The WWE at this point in time is about money. It's about how do we make the most money? And, I know, unfortunately, people don't like bringing his name up, but Vince McMahon was, when he was in charge, he cared about money, but he also cared about the product. He was always hands-on. He was always there making sure that the fans had really great storylines, great entertainment, and he was there to oversee all of that. Triple H is not the president of the WWE. He's the chief content officer, meaning he's the one that TKO looks at, to make them the money, to make these shows marketable. And oftentimes when you focus on just the bottom line of the business, the creative slacks off a little bit. And Paul Heyman wasn't shy on talking about that and addressing it. But I agree with Paul Heyman. I don't blame Triple H. At the end of the day, Triple H has bosses to answer to. And, when you work a job, no matter if it's entertainment, it's a corporate job, you have to have answers. And for Triple H, I'm sure, there's a lot of talent that people look at. LA Knight, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn finally. They look at certain athletes, they see certain wrestlers, and they say they deserve to be pushed. But unfortunately, Triple H's hands are kind of tied because at the end of the day, TKO wants what they want. They're the ones with the bag. They're the ones with the money. They're the ones who are in control. So if Triple H wants something, but TKO really wants something else, he might be able to split the difference, but we all know the bosses usually win. So, I do want to give a shout out to Triple H for Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia. A lot of great things happened during the event, and we're going to address all of that. Um, but I don't blame Triple H. I think just like the UFC, a quality dip has happened. Ticket prices are sky high. You're looking at mortgage payments for tickets. It's mind blowing. And I know a lot of people gonna look at these companies and say, oh, it's corporate greed, Triple H, Dana White, they only care about money. Remember, they got bought out. Somebody else owns them. So they control what they control, and they only can sit there and say yes. So, with that being said, let's get to some of the hot takes. Now, let's start off with the Geek Man, Jey Uso. The internet wrestling community strikes again. Jey Uso has been in the crosshairs for months now, and he wasn't shy on talking about it in a recent interview. He said, I stopped caring about what these people think because at the end of the day, a lot of them complain online, but they don't show up to the shows. They don't come to support. So why would I care? The people who come to these shows, they show him love. And some of them boo him, of course, but those are the ones you care about, not the ones that be on Twitter trolling, talking about your kids, talking about your mother. I used to be one of them, by the way. Not the wrestlers in general. I was a troll. I still troll a little bit. Now I get down, but a lot of people say Jey Uso doesn't deserve the push he's in. He doesn't deserve the spot in the roster that he has. Meaning, Roman Reigns is the world heavyweight champion now, which means he elevates his family. The Usos. Now we got Jacob Fatu in the fold. And Jey Uso has been pushed because one, he has a catchy catchphrase, yeet, but also his ties to the Samoan heritage. And a lot of people look at it as nepotism. They look at that favoritism. Oh, he's Samoan. That's why he's getting pushed. At the end of the day, yes, that does play a big part. That does. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. But at the end of the day, too, he's been in the company for almost 20 years. He's put in the time and effort and paid his dues. And, I don't hate him getting his opportunity because he is catchy. Now, is he Kurt Angle in the ring? Is he out here doing swanton bombs like Jeff Hardy? Is he, a ring general like Gunther? No, but not every wrestler is. Stone Cold. As much as I love Hot Take, Stone Cold wasn't the most electrifying man in the ring, and not everybody needs to be that. Some people, their personalities shine more than their wrestling. Other people let their wrestling do the talking, and we're in the entertainment era. We all know that. So if you're a wrestler, as much as you love Gunther, if you are Gunther and you don't have a personality, you're probably gonna be sitting in catering a lot of times. Now, if you're Jey Uso, who people might look at as very limited in the ring, the personality, the merch sells, the yeet in every city is magnetic. People love it, and it makes money, and that's what the WWE cares about, is the money. So you may not like the push that Jey Uso has, but he deserves it. He's put in his time. He finally got his singles run at the WWE Championship, and now he gets to ride a little bit of that success that he has. And that's just the name of the game. The game is to get to the top and stay there, not get to the top and fall down. So, I have no problem with Jey Uso, and I hope you don't too. Now, Lil Yachty. Lil Yachty. People say I look like him. Go on Google, look at it. Let me know what you think, because I get it all the time. People have criticized celebrity appearances. Lil Yachty, Jelly Roll, Eric Andre recently on Monday Night Raw, taking a bump from Jacob Fatu. People think the celebrity angle, Logan Paul, needs to be done. Scrap. Get them out of here. They don't deserve a place in the square circle. First of all, I will say I love Lil Yachty and what he's doing with Trick Williams. Not because people compare me to him, obviously, but because he's not outshining Trick Williams. He's not there to upstage Trick Williams. He's there to be his hype man. He's there to help support him, to help with the little catchphrases, to help get the entrances over. Not that he needs it, but he doesn't steal the spotlight away from the talent. And I think that's what a lot of times a lot of celebrity cameos and appearances happen, is people feel like they're taking up spots from the actual wrestlers themselves. Why is Jelly Roll in WrestleMania, but Sami Zayn is in catering? Why is Eric Andre doing a spot with Obafemi, but you got Trick Williams in the back doing nothing? You know, I do agree that we're in the era now with WWE and UFC as well, because I'm gonna get to that. Um, they're focusing on outside influences more than their own inside influences. Meaning, you go to the UFC White House. One of the biggest criticisms about that was, why wasn't a lot of UFC athletes showcased? You got a lot of NBA athletes, you got tennis athletes, you got boxers, you got influencers taking up these seats. Where's the UFC headliners? Where are the UFC stars, the talent? Why are they not sitting at these seats? Same thing with WWE. Every time they do the camera crowd, cam, there's an NBA athlete, there's an influencer, there's a major celebrity sitting there, and I get it. You want that mainstream appeal. In order to grow, you have to reach new audiences, and sometimes you have to do that by using people with a different platform, like an iShowSpeed, who has an entirely different fan base from WWE, but he's amongst the demographic that they want. So what do? You get him involved, get his fans, his millions of fans, to come over and check out what he's doing. Oh, okay. I like the strut. I like the Obafemi. Let's stick around. Let's watch this. That's how you get them involved. And I do agree that some of the celebrity cameos have upstaged the talent and they've taken away from the talent, but they've been essential since the Donald Trump days in WCW with Vince McMahon, and you need that to help grow the brand. And especially when you're trying to make money, you have to experiment with other fan bases, and that's why we're seeing so many celebrity cameos going on. And it slowed down a little bit in recent months. I think the fan backlash with Pat McAfee, Jelly Roll, I feel bad for them, because I feel like they're fans of the sport, and they're not there to upstage and take away from Randy Orton, Sami Zayn, some of these other talent, especially Randy Orton, with the whole Jelly Roll thing, uh, Jelly Roll with Pat McAfee. But it's not their fault. It's the TKO fault. They want the money. They want the exposure. They want Pat McAfee to use his successful podcast / show to bring in new audiences. And how do you do that? You give him a premiere spot in the scheduled programming, and unfortunately, somebody got to take a backseat when he's on screen. But you know what? At the end of the day, I don't blame the celebrities. Now, I will say, in defense of the people who complain about it, I like that Pat, Jelly Roll, iShowSpeed, Lil Yachty, they are out there taking bumps. They're not just there, smiling for the camera, kissing babies and waving and going about their day. They're actually putting in the work, training, learning, taking bumps, there to advance the storyline. They're not just there, just to steal spotlight and take up space. And I will give him credit for that. Logan Paul has proven he is a WWE superstar. I know people don't like Logan Paul. I get it, but if he hasn't proved that he is a WWE superstar now, then you will never believe he is. But I see the work ethic. He's definitely improved. He's definitely out there week in, week out, outside of injury. And he's a full-fledged WWE superstar now. And now we're seeing, Lil Yachty taking bumps. Now he's getting involved a little bit, not too much. He's not still in the spotlight from Trick Williams, but he's there. He's there to, take those bumps that Trick Williams shouldn't have. He's there to put, his Trick Williams opponent over. He's there to help advance the storyline. And that's what cameo should be. If I ever did WWE, which I would love to, my goal is to always advance the story. I'm not there to upstage the talent. I hate it in acting when you get influencers and stuff who's never done any training, come in and still movie roles that I feel like I'm right for, or other actors are right for. Just because you have a little bit of name value over some other people, excuse me, doesn't mean you could just come in and take over people's spots. I definitely agree with that point. I think if you're going to come in to the WWE, you have to do something. And if you don't want to do something, then don't be involved. You can't just go up to a Snoop Dogg and appear in his music video. This a give and take. He needs something, you want something, y'all come together and exchange, and that's how it should be. And but unfortunately, we live in a time where money sells, and that's all they care about. TKO. So, with that being said, let's talk about LA Knight. Yeah. LA Knight. A lot of people upset. They feel like he should have been booked already to be a WWE champion. What is WWE? What is Triple H doing LA Knight? Now, LA Knight was on Chris Van Vliet not too long ago, and he talked about that. Talked about his feeling like he's not being looked at by the upper management. They're not treating him as a main eventer. He doesn't enjoy the spot he's in, but he's over it. A lot of fans love LA Knight. They love the catchphrase. They love the hands. They love his promos, even though he does botch quite a few times. I'm not botchamania. LA Knight, but LA Knight is what you want in a superstar. He's in shape. He has the charisma. He has the promo skills. Here's where my hot take is. Here's my hot take. I get why they haven't booked LA Knight for the WWE Championship, and I'll tell you why. Because people look at me and say, "Hey, hold on, you just defended Jey Uso, Mr. Yeet Man. How's LA Knight any different?" Well, explain why. First of all, LA Knight. I love LA Knight's story. He went from a jobber to being behind the scenes in other promotions to finally get a little bit of taste of success, to being sent back to the undercard, to now coming to the WWE a few years ago and get himself over. I will give him full marks, full credit for that. His story is commendable. It's like Cody Rhodes' story. Cody Rhodes was a little different, but before American Nightmare, we all remember Stardust. We don't need to break down one, but we all know Stardust. So LA Knight has gotten himself over. Part of the biggest complaint, though, with LA Knight, not from me, but from other people, is his shtick is kind of reminiscent of Stone Cold. Now, some people might say, that's a stretch, that's a reach, but if you think about the promos, if you think about the outfits that he wears, if you think about his mannerisms, it has some of that Stone Cold-esque vibe to it, which is not a knock against LA Knight. You got to get it how you get it. If you got to get yourself over, you're going to borrow some techniques from other, past main eventers. So he has that going for him. Strike one. He has that Stone Cold vibe to him. Two, his age. Now, LA Knight isn't exactly old, but for WWE standards, he's not a Jey Uso who's been in the company since his early 20s and might be, in his 40s now, but he has that history with the company. LA Knight doesn't have that same history. Plus, he was also, if I'm not mistaken, when he came to WWE, he was about 40 years old. So he's in his early to mid 40s now. He's not exactly what you call young blood. He's not a Trick Williams. He's not a Obafemi. He's not a Javon Evans. He's an elder statesman in the eyes of the WWE without the status and the history behind him. And yes, I will admit his catchphrase, his promo words is amazing. It's phenomenal, and he definitely deserves a push. The problem with LA Knight also too is he often finds himself botching just a little bit, and I think LA Knight takes a lot of risks in the ring, especially in the corner where he jumps over to the top rope to do the suplex or some other athletic movements that he does. And he can't always quite get it right. And he ends up on Instagram. That's how you usually find it. And Botchamania clips. I think LA Knight deserves a push, but at the same time, I'm not blind to the reason why he's not getting one. It's his age. And unfortunately, we see with Randy Orton. And Randy Orton has a long career with WWE. Randy Orton isn't getting the push that he used to. He's not getting put in feuds. He's not winning that big one like he used to. And a lot of the times they want to use guys like that. Yes, Randy Orton is a lot bigger name than LA Knight, but they like to use those names to help put over the new talent. And we're seeing that now with Brock and Oba. But LA Knight definitely, if Sami Zayn can win the championship, LA Knight can. It might not be a long reign. It might only be a month or two. But I think he does deserve it. But unfortunately, like I said, his age, and he's talked about this openly. He feels like his age is the biggest deterrent for him. And it's unfortunate, WWE is a young game. It's a long game. You can't really build a company with a main eventer who's in his 40s. By the time he's 50, he's cooked. He's finito. He's done. And, you got Obafemi, you got Trick Williams, Javon Evans, who are killing it right now. Killing it. Do you need, LA Knight as world heavyweight champion when you got the king of the ring, Obafemi, sitting right here? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, shall we? Oba freaking Femi. Night of Champions was 2 days ago. And as I'm recording this. And I see the support for Obafemi like I haven't seen in such a long time. This dude, if you talk about over, he's over that. That dude is incredible. And Obafemi, my God, just has it. The promos, the in-ring work. He just got the whole package. He is what the WWE needed. And I'll be honest, I was talking to a buddy not too long ago about this. Especially in college, I loved watching WWE. Roman Reigns, my favorite wrestler. I used to love the Shield and all of that. And then we hit a period where it just felt like during the pandemic, Roman Reigns obviously took over as the tribal chief, and that got them through the pandemic and stuff. But it just felt like there was missing something. There wasn't that key ingredient to make that cheesecake stand out, right? Obafemi just got it. And people are now saying that they watch the WWE for Obafemi. He is the reason why people watch. And you look at some of these clips on social media from ESPN, even NHL, some of these other big sports organizations, UFC, you got people doing a strut, and that's how you get a main eventer right there. Now, before I get to my hot take, I'll say this. I'm worried for Oba. I am. I'll tell you why. I think Oba, and it's not his fault. It's the fans' fault. We're seeing just a small, very small group on social media complaining. Now they're complaining about Oba. Oh, he's being pushed too strong. Oh, he don't deserve to be champion. Triple H is booking him way too fast. Look, if we know about people on social media, the trolls, the complainers, they're gonna complain about everything. They have done everything right with Oba. They have taken that strap, put the rocket to his back, and shot him to the moon. But they also have put him on the medium setting, whereas he's flying, he's skyrocketing, but he's not reaching the moon in 3 seconds. It's going to take him maybe 15, 20 seconds. He's going to get there. But let's just slow it down just a little bit. Just a little bit. I think Oba's trajectory, the dude needs to be world champion. He has to be. If not SummerSlam, they better have an amazing program leading up to WrestleMania for his coronation. They need to get this right. And I fear that people are going to start complaining once he become world champion. Oh, he's not that good. The only thing hype about him is his interest, because we all know that's coming. But if the WWE stays course and continue what they're doing, don't go the Goldberg route, in terms of having them go on a 300-0 win streak. No, have him face a little bit of adversity, but don't let him take too many pitfalls. And I will book him a little different. I'll say this. I think I watched his match with Jey Uso for the finale of the King of the Ring. I would have Oba not sell as much. Just take a little bit off. Because when he goes against Brock Lesnar, when he goes against Roman Reigns, you don't want him overselling these moves, because Oba Femi, what his specialty is that immediate shock. He his opponents, gets right back to what he's known for. That is his key ingredient. So you can't have him bumping like Javon Evans all night and then suddenly get up and act like the Big Show. I think they got to take a page out of the Brock Lesnar early Brock Lesnar book. Have him take a little bit of bumps, but don't let him out there getting body slammed and really selling the back, being hurt, and just for a moment later to get up angry and start with his moveset. Let him take less bumps. Let him serve his purpose. Let him put over his opponents without taking away some of that mystique to Oba. Because when he goes against Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns, you want him to come across as a dude that they haven't seen before. And we have seen that with Brock. But when it comes to Roman, that's going to be the big one, because we all know they're gearing up towards that. The key is for Roman to look at Oba like, what have I got myself into with this guy? He don't go down. You hit him with 20 F5s. This dude's still kicking out. How do I overclimb this mountain? You got to build that up. So I will just say that's my only criticism. It's not Oba, it's the W. Have him reel in the cells. Have him take a step back a little bit on the selling, especially when he's not fighting like a Brock or a Roman. No, Jey Uso, I get it. He's a main eventer. They want to treat him as such. He's a veteran, so you want Oba to sell a little bit. But he's the new blood. He's Oba Femi. He's the king of the ring. He's the ruler, the mountain you cannot climb. So, in order to portray that, just have him, kick out at one. Have him sell a super kick, but not fall to the ground every time. Have him sell, but take a step back. So, I think Oba Femi is what the WWE needed, which leads me to, unfortunately, Braun Breaker. Everybody thought Braun Breaker was going to be the next best thing. He got injured, and obviously, we all know it went to Oba Femi. He's the new king in town. Oba Femi, Javon Evans, Trick Williams, 3 black prominent wrestlers. We haven't seen that in ever. It's usually 1, not 3. So, Braun Breaker had an amazing match with Seth Rollins, but unfortunately, Braun Breaker has cooled off, and people are noticing that they're not pushing him as the wrecking machine that he used to be. And here's my take. Here's my hot take with Braun Breaker. I think Braun Breaker is a phenomenal wrestler. He is. The way he runs the ropes, I think greatest of all time in terms of running the ropes. I haven't seen, outside of Brock Lesnar's speed and agility for a big man, I haven't seen anybody hit the ropes like Braun Breaker. Just in general, like the pure speed and accuracy that he has. Greatness personified. The problem with Braun is, unfortunately, his promo work needs work. He can't sell promos the way Oba Femi can. And I think that is one of the biggest knocks against him. Is his promo work isn't that great. The vision, I'm saying it right now. Get rid of him, scrap it. It doesn't work. You don't need it. I get the idea of I get the vision. You see what I did there? I get the vision of the group. The problem is, if you want to build a star, you can't have them stuck in a group. We see that with the Shield. The Shield, all of them became big marquee names, but eventually we all know Roman Reigns was supposed to be the next big thing. So you got to break the group up. The Vision has been on for too long. It's been they've been together for too long, and they're not going anywhere. And I know Paul Heyman is trying his best, and it's not his fault. I think if they want Braun Breaker to stand out, get rid of the group. You have to split them up. Let Braun do his thing. Let him focus on the areas of improvement. So when the time comes, because Braun is still very young, he has a lot of time. But in order to get to that time, in order to get to the peak, he has to work on those skills. And you can't have Paul Heyman managing him and 10 other people. He's not going to grow in a way that suits him to get him to the top. So scrap the vision. Have Braun Breaker go back, not to the basics, but have him stay at the mid card for a little bit. Have him go against Trick Williams. Have him go against, the Miz. I'm not gonna go as low as Danhausen. No disrespect to Danhausen. I want to get cursed. All right, you got me. But have Braun Breaker float right there, right in between mid card and main event. Let him get those reps in. Let him work on those promos. Let him get more time because Paul Heyman, as beautiful as he is on the mic as a personality, he can't do all the work from Braun Breaker because Braun Breaker isn't Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, it worked for Brock Lesnar. I don't know if it's going to work for Braun Breaker. He doesn't have the Brock Lesnar S to him. So I would say hot take is have Braun Breaker go float around the mid card, not too much with the main event scene, but give him just a little bit of taste. Have him work with the veterans, the CM Punks, so he get those reps in. Because it's clearly obvious Shawn Michaels did a killing with Omafemi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans. They came up ready. Not to say Braun isn't ready, but it's clear that he needs to sharpen some of the other tools in his arsenal in order to get that big push. And it's clear that Omafemi has taken his spot because for last year, it seemed like it was going to be Obafemi and Braun Breaker. Who was it? Who's going to take the lead in this? And I'm not going to make this into a whole political, racial scheme thing here, but everybody probably thought Braun Breaker was going to be the one to supplant, the news, become the new Cena. But man, like I said, I can't speak so highly. I can't keep speaking so highly of Oba. They struck lightning in the bottle with this guy. Young, great on the mic, great in ring. Just got the entrance by far, top two greatest of all time. They got the money, they got the machine with this man. Strap him up, send him to the moon, don't look back, and keep him strong. Don't lose faith. Don't cut his reign short. And if you do, make sure everything counts because Obafemi deserves that. Um, those are my WWE hot takes, my UFC hot takes. Well, let's get to it, shall we? So the UFC had the UFC White House. I know I'm a little late to this. I'm a little late to the party. I watched it, sat back. I was going to do some episodes about it, but like I said, I wanted to take a little step back. Now that it happened, ESPN, everybody chimed in. I want to talk about the White House just for a split second. I love the presentation. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever your political party is, it was a really great production. It was a really great show. All finishes from fighters, but it was the presentation, the cameras, the honor of the military. I come from a military family. My brother's in the Navy. Simplify. I know that's wrong, but he'll laugh anyway. Uh, Shout out to him. And shout out to the military. It was a love letter to the troops. I loved how they paid homage not only to the kids of the area, having them walk out with the athletes and participate in some of the atmosphere, uh, but also honoring the veterans. That I know a lot of people have different takes on it, but I respect the military. I respect our troops, current, past, and present, and the future. Um, and I think it was just a beautiful production. Everything, the cinematography, the backdrop of the White House with the fights delivered, Justin Gaethje, Cyril Gahn, list goes on and on. Um, I don't really have a lot of hot takes about that. I will say my only hot take is Cyril Gahn is the heavyweight champion. That's my hot take. Now, why I say that, for people who don't watch UFC, you might have seen a couple of these tweets go viral. Cyril Gahn for Alex Pereira, who is quite frankly beloved in MMA. The dude is just, everybody loves Chama, everybody loves Poatan, everybody supports Alex like very few athletes get. And it was clearly evident, during the fight that Cyril Gahn, he was the heavyweight. He was the guy. And as Pereira took the L, unfortunately, but it wasn't the L. The stuff that happened before the ending fight sequence happened that got people in ups and arms and crying foul and causing this mass debate. The back of the head shots. Now, I will always say this as a fan, but also as a critic. The media, MMA media, and to a certain extent, the WWE media, people who cover these sports, the biases that they have is clearly evident. And I feel like if you don't do a good job on non-biased reporting, you shouldn't be reporting. That's my hot take. When it's known that you have a bias against an individual or you're biased for an individual, it ruins the coverage. It ruins what people should be talking about. So Alex Pereira, has been on a kind of a interview media campaign addressing the fouls that he felt like he was on the receiving end of by Cyril Gahn and Herb Dean, referee, beloved Herb Dean. Now, here's my hot take. I think fans don't care about fouls. They just don't. They only care when it hurts the fighter they love. Alex Pereira, for instance. We've seen eye pokes, we've seen nut shots, we've seen back in the head shots, we've seen egregious fouls through the history of MMA. I haven't been around long enough to watch the whole history, but as a historian, who likes to study, I'll go back and I watch old stuff. And I've seen some egregious fouls. And, with the era of social media, people will air grievances, of course. But I haven't seen people air grievances as much as they have with this fight. Part of the reason I feel like that is because people love Alex Pereira. If it was Cyril Gahn getting hit in the back of the head, I don't think we have media, fans, and pundits across the globe criticizing this fight. Oh, it wasn't a clean fight. Cyril Gahn is a cheat. He's dirty. Alex Pereira has a right to be complaining about Herb Dean and Cyril Gahn. And, that fight should be overturned. No, it shouldn't. Everything else, I could see an argument for. But here's the deal. Legendary Big John McCarthy, probably the most respected referee in the game of all time, who oversees the referee committee, talked about this. Yes, some of the hits that Cyril Gahn did to Alex Pereira could be considered illegal. But what people are doing and he talked about this. They're taking photos, still photos of a fight, and then using that as a reference point to how dirty and a cheater Cyril Gahn is. But that doesn't display what's going on. That just shows a legal shot, and now it has people up in arms. Oh, he's a cheat. He's a foul. He keeps fouling. He'll not a fight clean. Well, when you're fighting somebody, WWE, UFC, when you're doing physical stuff, things change. In the case of MMA, he broke it down beautifully. Alex Pereira shoots for double leg when he gets hurt. Cyril Gahn starts hitting him legally. Alex Pereira uses his body to move certain ways, move his head, push Cyril Gahn around. And a shot that should be legal ends up being illegal because of the moves, because of the movement by both athletes. So, should Herb Dean stop in the fight because a shot that could have been legal ended up illegal because of the motion of the fighters? No, he shouldn't have stopped it. Why? Alex Pereira is holding on for dear life. No disrespect to him. I'm not clowning Alex Pereira at all. But he's trying to survive this onslaught of a barrage of hits. So he's doing anything he can to get the leg, get up to his feet, controlling Cyril Gahn, moving him out of position so he can get back up. And in the midst of all of that, when you're trying to finish a fight, you're not sitting there thinking, oh, where's he go? Oh, bam. You're not doing all that. You're trying to finish the fight. And some hits happen. And we've seen, like I said, I've seen some egregious fouls, meaning this is a difference between two athletes. One is hurt, the other one's trying to finish the fight, and the other one is doing all he can to get the other guy off of him. And in between that, some hits are, a little bit illegal, right? Illegal. Then a different fight where a fighter has a guy pinned to the ground and he's deliberately punching him in the back of the neck, back of the head, trying to cause severe damage. I think Alex Pereira, I understand how he feels. He feels like, some of those shots, he should have been, they should have stopped the fight. Not stopped it, but took a pause in the fight. Let him get up and recover. But I don't like some of the narratives that Alex is spinning and the media is spinning. I think Cyril Gahn pieced them up. I think Cyril Gahn was just a better athlete that night. I love Poatan just like everybody else. But you have to give credit what credit's due. Cyril Gahn did his job. He went out there. Everybody thought Alex Pereira was going to walk through him like a hot knife through butter. And it was going to be a quick night for Cyril Gahn. He was going to get put to sleep, and Poatan would make history as the first 3-division champion. It didn't work. And unfortunately, I know how beloved Alex is to the fans and the media. But at the end of the day, a fight is a fight. It wasn't a close fight. It wasn't like Alex Pereira had, some good shots and good moments. It was a clear domination by Cyril Gahn. And that's just my take. I think this whole uproar on illegal shots is only being done because it's Alex Pereira. If it was any other fighter, they wouldn't care. And we just had UFC Baku, if I'm not mistaken, where some of the fouls were very egregious in some of these fights. And people aren't really complaining that much. They really just turned a blind eye. They only bring up Cyril Gahn, the Cyril Gahn and Alex Pereira fight. Tom Aspinall, guy's eyes poked against Cyril Gahn. Accident. I'm a big fan of Cyril Gahn. But, he got double poked in his eye, requiring surgery. And people call Tom Aspinall a crybaby, a whiner. And, told him to stop whining. Get back to work. You're the champion. Stop whining. Get back in there. You was losing the fight. You just looking for a way out. We all heard that before. But now, because it's Alex Pereira, it's Poatan, it's Chama, people up in arms about it. I will say, as we wrap this up, I do want to see Josh Hockett versus Alex Pereira. I think that is the fight to make at Madison Square Garden. I think Alex Pereira should go back to the drawing board, cut some of that weight. I think bulking up to heavyweight. People like to say John Jones did it and he got fat. People carry weight differently. And when you're coming from a lighter weight to a heavier weight, genetics plays a big part, but also the timing. If you bulk for 5, 6 months, chances are you probably ate a lot of Dominoes and cereal and types of stuff to put on extra weight. Nobody gains 50 pounds of muscle in 5 months. And I'm not a seasoned lifter, but I think I know enough to know nobody puts on that amount of size that quickly. Usually it's a combination of some muscle, but a lot of fat. And I think Alex Pereira came in a little too heavy. I think he needs to go to the drawing board, cut a little bit of weight. He should stick in between the Josh Hogan area where you're about 230, 240. I think that's is his sweet spot. He's already a big guy. He don't need to put on, 20 extra pounds. I think Alex should just take his time getting comfortable to the new weight. Don't rush it. Just go back to the drum board and lose some of that weight and come back a little lighter, a little leaner. Because as a big guy myself, I know the difference when I'm 300 pounds to my current weight of around 270. I know I can feel the difference. I feel heavier. I feel plotting. I don't feel like I'm well conditioned this season. So, I'm on my cutting phase too. I've been hitting the gym. As you can see, face maybe just a task limit. We getting there. Tom Holland, I'm coming for you. Cristiano Ronaldo, you've been replaced. But thank you guys. What a ramble. I rambled a lot today. But I'm glad I did. I had to dust the rust off a little bit. Although I'm never rusty because I'm the most charismatic man. You can't rust the charisma. But yes, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for not abandoning the show while I take a little break from the podcast and found myself. We got some amazing episodes coming. We're gonna be rolling. I got some guests lined up for the show, and I'm really looking forward to give you guys more consistent content. And I'm going to always try to improve. I'm working on something new for the show. I'll spill the beans later, but I hope you guys stay safe. Have a great summer. Have a great rest of the day. We live, baby. We are here. We're back. The Prince of Fresh Air is back to take over his rightful place as the tribal chief. Thank you, guys. I hope you have a good one. Stay tuned for the next episode. And if you don't know, now you know. Yeet.